let's see here. We are live. All right, Sid. Let's see here. Are you in the chat?
Yep.
Okay. So just keep an eye on that chat. But let's talk about hooks. So Sid, you want to maybe start by introducing yourself a little bit?
Sure. So I think the entire community has been really excited about React hooks. It's a new feature that came out last week, and the idea is that we can now use um, stateful stuff and effects in functional components, so without classes. Um, and I think hooks opens up a lot more possibilities than just that we'll be looking at. But I think the biggest takeaway is that we don't need classes to use React State anymore.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty exciting, and that seems huge to me. Um, so, how do you want to start this today? So, I was thinking we could build a couple things the old way, and then refactor those to use hooks. Does that seem like a reasonable way
Sure,
to
sure, because
move
we'll
ahead?
write a lot of code and then we can delete a lot of it as well after that. So that sounds good.
All right, cool. So let's create a project here. Let's go to here, and we'll make a directory for. Let's just call it hooks, um, and so we'll start with it empty. Um, and maybe what we can do is let's just scaffold out a new project. Yeah. So we'll do npx Gatsby new, and we'll just put it in this folder.
Yeah.
All right. So we're just going to kind of spin up the default Gatsby starter here, which will give us kind of all the template that we need. So this will start us with a couple pages, um, header, layout, all that good stuff. And once we get the dependencies installed, which goes nice and slow when I'm streaming, we can run yarn develop. And that should take us to a working site. And if we go here, let's make sure that actually started. There we go. Localhost 8000. And here we go. We've got our site. So I'm going to shrink that to that side. I'm going to grab code on this side. And what should we build? What's a good thing to build with hooks to get us started?
I think we've got the default starter, and I was actually thinking about the blog starter because one thing it's missing is like a comments widget. So maybe we could go ahead and actually like build a component that does that.
Sure. And I guess we can just put it on the pages because it doesn't really matter where it is.
Yeah.
So you want me to create a new component?
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got a comments component. Let me move the video so that I'm not looking at it here. So we can start by importing React from React, and I'm just going to set up the boilerplate here. Export default comments. Okay, so we have a really basic component. Let me toss that into our index page. And love that feature. The auto import in VS Code always makes my life better. Let's get that saved. And now if we come out here, we can see that the comments are showing up as we wanted them to. All All right. So what's next? What do we want to do next?
So I think, if you want to break this down into two parts, one is going to be an input, a form where the user can type out a comment. And the other part is going to be a list that renders all the components. All the comments, I'm sorry. So let's go ahead and add a form with a text input.
Okay, so we'll do the form.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess we'll do the rest of that later. And we'll give it a label because we want to make sure that it's accessible. And what's this going to say? It's going to say comment, input type, say text, or what do we want? We want a text area, right?
Yeah.
Name, comment. And is that it for now?
Yeah, that's good for now. We can add event handlers later.
Do a button type submit and add comment. All right.
Sure.
So, that's not perfect, but we'll make that display block so that it is a little easier to see. Yeah, that'll be good enough for now.
Sure, that'll work.
So then what do we do?
So below the input, below the form, you probably want to, render a list of the current comments. So to do that, I'd probably just add like a UL and add an LI inside, just like a sample LI for now.
Okay. And let's see this.
And yeah.
So that'll kind of be what we're working towards. So how do we get actual data into this?
So this is fun, right? Because now we need to add state. And you started out writing this as a functional component, but in the old React, we probably need to convert this into a class now to be able to use state.
Let's do it. So we've got class comments, extends React component, and then we have a render method, and that would return all of this. So let's grab that, drop it in here, and I'm just gonna, for the sake of, because I imagine we're coming back to this, let's just comment that out for now. So we've got ourselves a class component. I broke it. What did I do? It was just because we switched the component from a function to a class, it broke. So cool. With a refresh, we've got that. And now we need to add state.
Yeah, so now you need a constructor, typically, right?
Okay, I always forget this. Is it construct or constructor?
It's a constructor, so you need.
Okay, and that gets props?
Yeah. That's a function that gets props. And the first thing we do is we call super with those props.
Okay.
And then we set a this.state to an object.
Okay. And are we going to put...
In our case, we're probably going to put like current comment and comments. Comments being an array.
Is
and
this one
current
going to
comment
be
a string, probably, yeah.
String. And comments will be an array.
Yeah.
All right.
That looks good. Now, we probably want to render current comment inside the text area.
Okay, so this will be value, this state current comment, and then we need to write a on change, right?
Yep.
Okay. And this is going to take the event.
Mm-hmm.
And then we want to, I guess we don't need to do that, do we? What do? We do this
So we're going to want to
set
set this dot set state. Yeah, and we're going to want to set current comment to event dot target dot value.
Event dot target dot value. Okay.
Yeah. So now I think
and then
typing the text area should.
On change equals this dot on change Do I have to bind that or anything?
You do actually. So in the constructor, you can go ahead and
Yeah, it doesn't work. All right, so let's bind it.
yeah, yeah. In the constructor, you're gonna want to bind it.
And this always confuses me. Do you know why we have to do this?
Okay, so before I answer that, you're gonna want to assign that version of the bound function back to this dot on change because this won't work either. So we're gonna want to do this dot on change is equal to this dot on change dot bind this.
Wait, for real? That doesn't work?
Yeah, that won't work because we need to reassign it back to.
What? Okay. Equals
So this is
this
gonna be
dot.
this dot on change dot bind.
All right, let's try this one more time. Hey, we get a comment. All right.
That'll work.
And so then we need to submit those comments, yeah?
Yeah. So before we do that, I want to
okay.
quickly go over why we need to bind.
Yes, please do.
The interesting thing here is that when we set the event handler in the element that you've got in render, this context in JavaScript for that function ends up being that element. And that doesn't work for us because we need to be able to access set state, props, etc. from the component. So when we bind this in the constructor, what we're effectively saying is bind this function, or rather set the context for this function to the context of the whole component. So we can access props, set state, etc.
So I've got a question in the comments. Wouldn't it be easier to use arrow functions?
So we could. I think it's called static properties in ES 2017 plus. So we can use that, but I'm not sure if the basic, if the default config that comes with Gatsby and Create React apps support those entirely. So we could do that. We could just set. Yeah, we could try it.
So if we do on submit, and what would we do, like this?
Yeah, and that becomes an arrow function.
All right, let's try it. Let's see if it works. I'm just gonna console log this. I want to see if it actually works before we do anything else. Let's do that, and then we'll do form on submit, and this on submit, and turn on the console so that we can see this. Oh, I gotta event prevent default. That works.
So you're gonna want to log state. This in that function.
Console
so we know
log
what
this.
the context is. Yeah.
Okay, let's try it again. Comments.
So that works. That's the component that we wanted to bind to. So yeah,
Cool.
we could do this and get away. Without binding it, but this has been something that's been a gotcha for a while, right? For a lot of people, I think.
No, it's cool. It's cool though because I've always just kind of dealt with this, and I intellectually understand how this binding works. I've read, but ultimately I feel like I have no idea how this actually works under the hood. So it's really good to get that explanation, and kind of thinking about it that way, where when you pass it into this, it becomes a different, a different this context because this is a whole different thing. So that's useful to know. This seems a lot easier. So let's just play with that. So what we can do then is, what are we doing? We're doing this dot set state.
Set state.
And we're going
we want to push a new comment now.
So we can do this state comments and then add the new comment.
Yeah.
Does that work? Does that offend your sensibilities for me to do it that way?
No, that works. We also want to set current comment to an empty string now. Maybe.
Yes. Can I do that here? This.
Yeah, you can.
Current comment is an empty string, and that's not going to mess this up because this won't execute until after. Got it. Okay, I'm going to do it. All right, so let's do this, and then we can, down here, we want to actually render these comments. So this state comments map, and that'll give us a comment. And then we can move this down in here. And I guess we can just set a key to the value of the comment, right? I don't know, that feels a little bit gross, but
Yeah. I mean, ideally we'd have an ID, but I guess that's okay for now.
yeah, this is not production ready code. Please don't put this into your website. Okay, so if we do that, then we get test. Another test. All right, we've got comments. We have a working comment system. So that's pretty slick. Like that feels cool. How can we improve this with hooks?
All right. So this is the fun part, right? So let's do you want to reduce the font size maybe, and let's just look at like a bird's eye view of the entire component right now.
Sure. Let me get this out of the way.
So there are a bunch of things happening here, right? And the first thing is that we need a class. We needed a class because we want to use state. And the second thing is there was all of that work around the binding.
Mm-hmm.
Now with hooks, we don't need classes anymore. So let's turn this back into a functional component and use hooks now.
Okay. So just to kind of recap what you said, we've got this constructor, and the constructor is like this boilerplate. This is boilerplate. We're setting state here, and then we've got handler functions and handler functions. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on here. So let me blow this back up to a size that I can read. Cool. So now we're going to take this and turn it into a functional component. So let's get back on this. And what I'll probably do here is just take all of this code and push this through. So this is gonna break at first, but we'll go back and fix it. So let's, not even gonna save that yet. So, all right, what do we do next?
All right, so the first thing you want to do is probably remove the implicit return and make this a function so that we can add other expressions above it. So let's remove the parentheses and add curly braces. Great.
Okay.
All right. So now we get to use our first hook. Let's go ahead and import useState from React.
Got it.
Great. And now we can just create.
Let me move this up actually so that we can see everything that's happening. Okay, so we've got useState from React, and I'm gonna get.
Now we just create something like maybe comment, comma, set comment, and call useState with an empty string.
And now this is our current comment, yeah?
Yeah.
All right.
So what's happening here is that useState is a hook that comes with React, and we're passing the empty string because that's the initial value.
Okay, so this is our initial value.
Yeah, and what it's returning is that it's returning an array of the value from state and a function to update that value.
So this one's the value, and this one is the function to update. And so if we were to do this as like kind of this is going to look kind of gross, but like if you were to get it back as a value like this, you would have hook 0 is the value, and hook 1 is the like set function.
Absolutely. I mean, you can do this, but of course,
but it's hard to read. So what we're doing instead is we are destructuring.
Yeah.
So you get the first array element is the value, second array element is the setter.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So so the interesting thing here is that useState, we pass a string to useState, right? Previously, we had a state object that had different slices of state. But now what we're going to do is we're going to have independent hooks for each part of the state, and
Mm.
we'll see why that's cool in a minute. So let's add another instance of the same line. Let's do const um, comments and set comments. And this time the initial value can be an array, an empty array.
Got the empty array. Okay.
Great. So now what we got to do is we're gonna have to write a on submit and the on change handler. Maybe you want to just copy that over from the class.
I'll just rewrite it real quick. So we're going to event prevent default.
Mm-hmm.
And then what? We do set comments, and that's going to be...
That's going to be comments, and then the comment, exactly.
Okay,
and then
so
you
we're
also want
taking
to set the comment to be an empty string.
Right. So this one, what we're doing is we're taking set comments is the setter for this section of state. We're going to spread the existing comments. So this is what's stored in comments now. So we want that to come back into the array. So we spread that, and then we add the new comment from here. And so then we need to set comment, and we just set that back to an empty string.
Yeah.
Okay. And then on change, now this one should be really easy, because on change, we are going to take the event, and we're going to set...
We're going to call it set comment. Yeah.
And that's event target value. And that's it. So we can come back down here and let's refactor. So we can take out the this dot. So now we're just referencing the function that we wrote. And same thing for on change. So we can get rid of that. This one, we're going to use the comment. This one set here.
Yeah.
Let's see.
And below that, we can just map on comments instead of just update.comments.
Map on comments. Okay. And then this, because it's going to be confusing, is I'm going to just call this... I hate that, but
that'll work.
Whatever. So then, if we change this, we've got... Just want to change that so we can make sure that what we're doing is working. All right, it's prefixing.
Yep.
And we've got ourselves a working hooks implementation. And so this is kind of exciting. So let me zoom back out here again so we can look at the difference. So looking at this code, so the markup doesn't change too much, right? We've got, we still have a form with an on submit. We still got a text area with an on change. We're still mapping over comments. What's really nice though is this limitation in boilerplate. Like this is way easier to understand, to my eye at least, than kind of the state-based stuff. Like there's no binding or anything like that.
And what I also like is that it's just JavaScript, right? I mean, you're just passing comments. When in line 13, where you destructure comments, or rather you spread comments, this is all just JavaScript, right? There's no lifecycle method. There's no special this.state.value from an object anywhere. It's just a variable that you initialized up top and that you're using here.
Yeah, and that is really nice. And then, kind of looking back at this for comparison, we had the constructor. We're binding things. We're doing like this dot set state. We're pulling things out here. And you've just got like all these extra, there's just like a little bit of extra ceremony with classes it's just not as much fun. So let's get rid of that entirely. I don't even want to look at it anymore. So this is nice. Here we go. We wrote nothing's going to persist, obviously. If I refresh the page, those comments are gone. So there are more things that we would need to do. But with relatively little code here, we've got 40 lines total code, including the markup. We end up with a completely functioning, like stateful component that is pretty easy to read. I dig that. This is a pretty powerful way to handle. What should we do next?
Let's look at the concept of so React comes with a lot of different inbuilt hooks, right? There's use state, which we just saw. There's also use context, and a couple of other hooks that are really useful. But what interests me a lot is the idea that a hook is just a function, right? So we can create custom hooks that get to encapsulate a lot of this behavior. So let's do that. Let's take all of this code out and make a hook called use comments, which encapsulates all of that code.
Cool. So what do I want to do here?
So you wanna probably just start creating a function called const use comments, and for now just return nothing. And then let's go back to our comments.js, and let's cut everything out of here, right? From line 4 to line 15.
Cut.
Yeah, all of that can just go inside that inside our new function here.
Okay.
You're gonna probably want to import use state from React here.
Import use state from React, not capitalized. Whoops.
Oh yeah.
Got it. And then
you're probably gonna want to export this. Yeah.
Wow. I'm gonna get there. All right.
So now what's cool is that if we go back to our previous component and we want to use this, we just got to import it. And now what we've done is we've written a custom hook where we've taken all of our business logic and encapsulated it in what is just another function, which you can reuse.
Okay. So what we aren't doing yet is returning anything. So what are we returning from?
Exactly. So let's look at what we need and sort of work backwards. A component, or rather the idea of a hook that does comments should probably return, maybe an on submit for a new comment, and on change for the current comment, all the comments that we have in the system, and basically all 4 of those things that we're using.
Okay, so we need, and how do you want to do this? Is there a convention for this? Because I've been thinking about it. Is it going to be an object? Is it an array? What do we do?
So that's a great question, right? Because the official hooks that come as part of React, state returns an array. So that's, I'd call that a convention. But the thing is, the moment you have more than 2 or 3 different things that you want to return, arrays can get a little cumbersome, right? Because also they're order dependent, and you can't really, it's just hard to read. So I've seen a lot of third-party hooks where folks are returning objects, and we can destructure an object as well. So let's return an object.
All right. So we need the comments, on change, and on submit. Or that's going to equal use comments. We're not returning that yet. We're not using use state here anymore, so we can get rid of that. And that means that we need to come back here and actually return this. So we're going to return an object, and we'll just do comments, on change, on submit. Save that. And let's do so now what we should see is, there we go. It brings in our imported hook with this custom. And so I'm going to get rid of that because that'll get super annoying super fast. But we can... So, this is slick. Like, this is, and this makes it really clean too if we look at it, because now all we're doing is pulling in our comments hook, getting out the things we need, and then dropping them in where they're needed. And so that makes for a really, really nice authoring experience. especially if this was
Absolutely.
going to be
And
shared
I think
across
another
pages.
thing, absolutely. Another thing I really like about hooks that I didn't mention previously is that, so the first big point was that we don't need classes anymore, at least the state, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the second thing that you just illustrated is that with hooks, a lot of our business logic inside a component can now be shared. So you could have maybe like a private comments or some other kind of component that needs to do the exact same thing. And you could just use the use comments hook that the custom hook that you created.
Mm-hmm.
And that allows for a lot of code reuse. And what's interesting about it is that hooks released a week ago, and that there are already so many community hooks that people have released. There's hooks that let you persist to local storage. There's hooks that let you persist to Firebase. So it's a really powerful pattern, I think.
And so now, if this were to, like, let's say that we imported this twice. If I took this and I were to drop it in up here, say, would the
Mm-hmm.
comments created in this form also show up in the comments array here, or is each one a separate instance?
So they wouldn't show up because each one is a separate instance.
Okay.
One of the so there are a couple of rules of hooks that that are in the documentation in the React docs, and one of the rules is that even though they allow code reuse, every instance is independent because that state is tied to the component that is using the hook.
So, and we can demonstrate this really easily. So if we take use comments
Mm-hmm.
from hooks and use comments, and then here I just convert this really quickly to include. We'll just do a const comments equals. Oops. Use comments. Oh my god, I can't type today. Okay. And then I'll just do a quick JSON stringify of comments so that we can see what's going on. And so if I run this now, we'll see comments up here has nothing in it. Let me close the console here. And then down here, if I add something, we've got a comment. Get this out of the way. We've got a comment down here, but it's still empty up here. So each instance of use comment has its own independent state, which means like that's maybe a pain in the ass if you're trying to do something like add comments in one place and show them in multiple places, because now you've got to add like context or some way of managing global state. But it's really powerful if you're doing something like, say, a like button, where you're going to have 15 posts on the page and each one needs to track its own likes. You can now instantiate those 15 times using the exact same shared hook and not worry about the state like polluting the global area. You have each one is self-contained, and so you can safely build components, not worrying that that state is going to be shared or messed up by using it more than once. That's pretty cool.
Absolutely, because I think it's very easy to shoot
Let me revert
oneself in
this.
the foot, right? If they happen to sort of reuse the same sort of scope across different instances. So I really like that. I think a simple way to remember this is that the usage of a hook is tied to the component, or rather the scope for a hook is tied to its usage, not where it's created or where it's initialized.
So it's tied here where it actually gets instantiated.
Exactly, where it's being used.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so let's see. We've got about we've done about 35 minutes here. What else do you want to do? Do you want to do anything with other hooks?
Absolutely. Let's check out the use context hook, because I think that's something that a lot of people will enjoy using, because it makes things so much simpler. So let's go ahead and use our use comments and make it like a global set of comments that any other component can use or or change.
Okay.
So maybe you can persist sort of comments across pages.
Sure. What's our first step?
So the first thing we want to do is we want to go back to our app, sort of our app container. So let's look at our layout.
Okay.
Yeah. In here, let's go ahead and import use context.
Use context.
Yeah, you'll also want to import, I think, create context, because we're going to want to create the context here.
And create context is that, did I get that casing right?
Yeah, that looks good.
Okay.
That looks right. So now we want to just create a variable called, let's call it comments context.
And that's going to be create context, yeah?
Yeah.
All right. What do we want to pass it?
So we can pass the default value here. And in our case, again, that's going to be an empty array.
Empty array?
Yeah.
Okay.
And what comments context returns is that it returns an object with a provider and a consumer. Now, what a provider is it's the component that you want to wrap like your top level app with, so that components within the tree can go ahead and access it. So now we're going to want to wrap everything in comments context dot provider.
Comments context dot provider, and we need to set a value on this, right?
Yes, I think we need to set a value on this.
Do you remember what the prop is? Is it just value?
I think it's value. It's value. I think it's value.
And then.
So typically you would have some state up here. For now, let's just pass like an array, and we'll come back.
Well, we
to that in a moment.
We can just leave it, right? Because it's the default value will come in from create context.
Yeah, that should work for now. We'll come back and we'll update this.
Okay, let's get this put here. So now everything's wrapped.
Yeah. So now just for illustrating whether this works or no, let's just add in the default value. Let's just add a sample comment there in the array, so that when we, up there on line 8.
Up here?
Yeah.
Got it.
Let's just add like this is a sample comment. Yeah.
I write all my sample comments like I'm sending emails to clients. Like I use a lot of exclamation points.
I do that as well.
Oh, wait, hold on one second. We've got questions. So one is a question about use static query. We are going to cover use static query in a minute, so I'm going to hold off on that question. The next one is, how do you handle a global state with use reducer? You create a separate folder with reducers, actions, etc., as we usually do it. That's a great question. Should we do a reducer after this, maybe?
Yeah, let's do a reducer after this.
Okay, perfect. So we'll come back to use reducer after we do the context. So then what do we do?
Great. So now typically what we do is that we go back to, some other component that wants to use this context, and we'd have to wrap that component in a consumer. So that would be a comments context or consumer. So to do that, you'd have to export this context first. So let's go ahead and just export comments context from this file.
Okay. Do we need this one yet?
No, we don't. We don't actually.
Okay.
You can remove that.
So we're exporting our comments context. We're wrapping our whole layout with our comments context. And are we going back here now? Comments?
Yeah. So typically what you do is you'd go ahead and wrap this component in. You'd want to import the context first.
Okay, so we're going to import comments context from components, or wait, it's just from layout.
Typically you wouldn't put it in like another component file, but it's okay for now. I guess typically you'd put this in a file of its own.
This is going to tweak me if we don't do it, so let's just do it. We'll put it in context and comments JS, and so we can go back into the layout and we'll get import from React, and we're going to export default, create context, okay, so we're exporting that default. So then over here, instead of doing this, we will do an import comments context from context comments. All right, so that should have exactly the same outcome, but now this file is more contained, which is a little easier to reason about, in my humble opinion. So
Absolutely.
then we can go to...
It's much cleaner. And this is how you'd want to do it in production.
Okay, so we've got our context, and we've got use comments. Or wait, do we want the comments context in use comments or in the comments component?
No, for now, let's illustrate how we'd use context like in the old React way to do it.
Sure.
So typically what you do is you'd go ahead and wrap the entire component now with a comments context dot consumer.
Okay. And then we'll move this down here. Got it? I broke it.
Yeah.
Got to do a render prop.
I think it takes a render prop.
So by default, it's going to put us here. We're not using anything from the context yet, but what this would give us is it destructured, or is it just would be comments, yeah?
It would just be comments. Yeah.
Okay.
So that would have a sample comment. If we look at it now, it should render a sample comment.
Let's do the dump. JSON stringify comments from context. All right. So putting that in there and getting this out of the way, we get nothing.
Oh. Do we need to destructure it?
Well, it should give us something at least. Is it because we didn't add a default value? That shouldn't be it, right?
Yeah, that probably should be it. Let's try that.
Oh, okay, so that works. So
right.
Maybe the context doesn't need to be set at all?
I thought create context took a default value.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, so it does take a default value according to the docs, but this is interesting. Anyway, so it does take a default value according to the docs, but turns out that doesn't work here.
Yeah,
not sure what that is.
We're doing something wrong, but let's not hang up on it. So we'll we're adding in
let's get back to
a value. That value is being grabbed from the context consumer, and that gives us our comments.
Yeah.
Cool. So then what?
So context is great, but what I don't like about render props specifically is that they can really increase the depth of the tree, and that makes things really hard to visualize, right? Because right now we already went one level deeper than we had to, or rather, because we had to. And when you're looking at dev tools, you're trying to debug a real-world production app. Every single layer that's added can add a lot of cognitive, overhead. So let's get rid of that, and let's use the hook instead.
Okay, so we get rid of this. We'll get rid of this, and we'll get rid of this. And that gives us back our kind of cleaned up, simple component. Makes sense. The levels are where we want them to be. This all kind of makes sense. It's hierarchical. So how do we use this then?
Great. So now you have a hook called use context, just like we saw use state. We can import that from React.
Okay.
And in our function, we just need to call use context, and it returns the value, and it takes the context. So here, this is going to be comments from context for now.
And we just
and we
pass
can
in
pass
comments context?
Yeah.
Cool. And we can do the same thing. We'll just do that pre. I should have a shortcut for this. All right. And that comes back the way we expected. So comments from context is just coming in from here. And this is clean. Like, that's nice. We don't have the extra nesting. We're not dealing with render props. It just does what it says on the tin, which is always nice.
Absolutely. And it's also one level. It isn't another level deeper than it has to be, right? So in DevTools, if one had to inspect this, they wouldn't see an extra level just for the render prop component for the consumer. So that's something really nice because it makes things really clean, especially if you're using multiple. So in this case, we use one context, but in a lot of real world apps, I've seen people use, multiple sort of contexts, one for say theming, another for global app state, etc.
Oh yeah,
And
that would
leads
get really deep.
Exactly, a lot of nesting, right? And in this case, it's just 2 or 3 function calls. So that's really cool because you're not getting deeper into that tree for no reason.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
So now, yeah. So now we probably want to refactor our use comments hook to make it work with context so that we can use it in multiple parts of the app.
So let's go into the hook.
So, yeah.
And I assume I want use context now.
Yeah.
And I want our context. Context. Comments. All right, what's next?
All right. So now in our custom hook, instead of setting up the state ourselves, what we can do is we can just use context. So we can say const.
And it's just going to be comments, right?
For now, yeah. And that's going to be use context of comments context.
Okay.
And now we're going to have to go back to comments context and add all of this state management there.
Got it. Okay, so here we are in comments context. And what are we doing?
All right. So what's interesting here is that this is the context, but typically you'd still need some part of your app to you'd still need a component to manage that state, right? So in this case, we'd actually have to create a component that wraps the context. So let's make a React component,
Okay.
which has state of its own.
And what should we call this?
We should probably call this comments context, or rather, like, I don't know, app container maybe.
Sure, that's fine. App container. And then we want, what do we need?
So now app container is basically going to do 2 things, right? One is it's going to use the use comments hook so that it's got all that state, manage that, right?
So we want,
and it's gonna.
Okay, so hold on. We're doing the use comments from hooks.
From our custom hook. Yeah.
Okay.
And this is going to be a custom React component. So now we need to import React.
Okay. And we need our context.
And now
Comments context from context comments.
Sure. So now what we want to do is we want to create a functional component. Let's just call it const app container. Right. Now this is going to use comments.
Or what did we do? We did comments on change
it on submit.
On submit from, or always do that, equals use comments.
Mm-hmm. So now we have comments set up in state for this component, right? Now what we want to do is we want to return some DOM, and in that return we're gonna use the comments context.
Comments context.
Mm-hmm.
And are we
now
doing
you're gonna want to set the value for?
Are we doing the provider or the?
We're doing the provider, right? So we're basically wrapping the provider in another component so that we have some state.
Got it.
Yeah.
And the value is going to be, we want to set that up probably outside of this.
Yeah, so the value is we can probably start with just comments for now. So it's just like a read-only thing.
Okay, so for now it's going to be like that.
Yeah, that works for now.
Okay. And then do we need to return?
And inside this, we're probably going to want to return render children inside this so that we can use this as like a wrapper.
Got it. Okay, so we're sending these are anything that gets passed inside. So between here and the closing tag, anything inside React always adds a children prop so that we can grab that and basically just say anything that's inside of this component, put it in the middle. Then what?
Great. So now we can go back to our where were we using our context? So in layout we had, there you go. So now instead of using the provider directly, we can just use the app container instead. That's a lot cleaner.
Okay. So we're going to do app container, and that's going to come from the app container, which means we get rid of this route, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm going
we just replace that entire thing with app container now.
Okay. Oh yeah, that's a little nicer to look at. And so that though will break now because I guess it doesn't. It just if we go back to our browser, now it shows that we've got the comments is like a property on the object instead of just being an array.
Exactly.
Okay.
So now let's hook up the method so that we can actually add comments and then see that it's getting updated everywhere. So instead of just setting the value to comments, let's set the value to comments, comma, comment, comma. So basically everything we get back from the hook.
Do we care about comment?
We do, because we're going to want to use it in an input somewhere down in the tree, right?
Got it. Okay, so we're sending all of that now, and so the JSON stringify is dumping our functions, but that's okay.
That's okay. And now we can go back to our original comments component.
I named everything comments. Okay. So now
we can get we can get rid of that now, because now we no longer need to call use comments, right?
So we effectively just swapped this out, right?
Exactly.
Okay. And so now we have our comments context.
Mm-hmm. And we have everything passed in.
Very cool. All right. So if I do this, it should just continue to work as normal, right?
Absolutely. It should just work.
Let's give it a shot. Okay, so that continues to work, but where this gets really powerful is, I think, in our next step, right?
Absolutely. So now if we want to have we used the context anywhere else in the app? Like
Not that I'm
earlier, I
aware
think
of,
in
but
Gatsby,
we had played with
or
it
we
for a minute,
removed
but we
that.
hadn't actually done it.
Mhm. Great. So let's add it back, right? Here, let's add use context. Let's import that from React, and let's import our context as well.
Comments, context. Oh my God. I'm going to get there. Context and comments. And we're going to include use context. And so now if I take this, we make, let's do const comments equals use context and our comments context. What that should give us, presumably, is a way to view all of these somewhere else. So if I stringify comments, all right. So now what we have is we're pulling in the comments from the context instead of from the hook. And we'll be stringifying those. So as we look at this, whoops, what did I miss? Cannot read comments of undefined. Use
Oh,
context.
I don't think we forgot to import use context from React.
I got
We
use
did.
context. Context comments.
Oh, wait, I think comments context is the React component. I think we need to import it from. Are we importing the right thing? Right?
We're importing from here. Do we need to, this is around everything. So app container. And then this would include our children. So am I confused? Does this have to be inside of layout? Like, do I need to do this inside of a different component?
No, this can be here. I think what we're doing is we're probably importing the wrong thing. So comments context is coming from context comments. I guess we've really overused these two words.
Yeah, I've made mistakes here.
So I think context comments is that the instance of the context? It is, right?
Yeah. And so that's what we're using in the app container. We're importing the comments context. And then we're adding the value in. And so what should happen is we should be getting comments context, yeah? Did I typo something? Comments context.
That looks correct to me. Context comments. And you call it with use context. Do you want to go back and hit refresh and look at the error again?
Cannot read comments of undefined.
So use context is returning undefined then.
Mm-hmm. Let's see if it's, how is it returning undefined? What are we doing wrong?
You want to just log what it returns? I mean, we know it returns undefined.
Oh, you know what I forgot to do? I forgot to actually save this. So I think when we... Let me go back and just hold off on this for a second. And let's make sure that what we built actually works before we go. Cannot read comments of undefined. Are we out of sync here? What happened? All right, well, we knew we weren't going to get through a whole live demo without some kind of odd debugging issue. So let's set comments is not defined in use comments.
Because you've commented that out. That needs to come back in, right?
Okay, so we did all sorts of weird stuff here. So we're not using context inside of the hook.
Yeah, we don't need to, right, anymore. We can get rid of that.
Okay, so we're getting rid of this. Let me close this. We're getting rid of use context. So we're using state. This is all what we want. Okay.
Absolutely. And we're using this in app container.
And now
it works.
Okay, that does what we want. So let's go back to index. Let's try this
Use
again.
context there. Yeah.
Make sure that we've got everything we need. And uncomment this. And it still doesn't like that. So I'm curious. So what I'm wondering about is, so like the context is declared here. So I'm wondering if we're trying to use the consumer outside of the.
You're right. You're right. I think that's what it is. I think what's happening here is that, so app container is in layout.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And the context is defined inside there. So we're actually outside the tree. We can't go ahead and use it. You want to just use it in the header component or maybe the SEO component instead?
Oh, sure. Yeah, let's do that. We'll put it into the header component. And
because that's inside layout, right?
Yes. And so I'm just going to drop we'll do comments. Okay. And so what we can do then is we're going to import comments context from context. And then we're also going to get use context. And in here, we're going to turn this into something with an actual return so that we can equals use context comments context. All right. We've got the use context. We've got our context. We are using it. We've got comments. And we're spitting those comments out here. Did I not save the changes in index? Aha.
It's in there.
There we go.
Right.
So that's...
That looks funny, but it works. Let's add a comment.
And it shows up. So that is the way that you would persist a comment across a different part of the site. Now we're not doing anything like, this isn't going to last between refreshes. It goes away as soon as we clear the state. But yeah, so cool. All right, and we learned something. You can't declare use context outside of the layout that actually defines the provider. So if you wanted to be able to use this literally anywhere, we would need to do something like use Gatsby's wrap root component, or what is that the right API?
It is. So that's a good thing you bring up, because often providers need to be as high up in the tree as possible so that we don't see things like issues like this. So Gatsby has wrap root element or wrap page element. Wrap page element is page specific. Wrap root element wraps the entire tree. So that's the best place to put all your providers in typically.
Do we want to put that in SSR, browser, or both?
Both. You're gonna have to put that in both.
Okay. So let's just do that real quick. So we're going to do exports wrap root element and walk me through this. Do we get children like this?
Yeah, you get props just like that. Yeah.
Got it. And we're going to return. Does this work the way that I want it to, where I can like just can I do this? Let's try this. I don't know if this syntax works in a Gatsby browser file. So if I do my app provider from source components, or app container is what I called it.
Yeah, this should work. So we've called it app container. We also want to import React here, because when the app container code is transformed, we need React. But this will work.
Import React from React.
Yeah.
And so let's then go back to our layout and let's
Mm-hmm.
drop this. And that will be our test of whether or not this worked. So I'm going to get rid of this.
Yeah.
And what we should see, I think I need to start and stop again because we
Because we
added
changed
added
Gatsby
a
class.
core API here.
Mm-hmm. So one thing to point out is that I mean, typically you'd want to, whenever you're using wrap root element of one of these APIs, you're going to want to do it in both Gatsby browser and Gatsby SSR. Because Gatsby browser is stuff that happens after we hydrate your build, and Gatsby SSR is stuff that happens at build time.
Yes, I screwed something up. So we're getting a blank screen. And so I want to look at wrap root element.
Did we render children inside?
I thought we did. I've got my Gatsby browser, wrap root element,
We did.
and I'm returning the app container with the children, but I think I did something wrong. Aha, it's element, not children.
It's called.
I knew it was a gotcha like that. Okay, so this should then, let's
This
double
just works.
check.
Yeah.
Here we go. Testing. Perfect. And now if I go back to our layout, which is, where is it? Here.
Yeah.
I should now be able to do what I want.
Use context right here.
Yeah. Let's just try it real quick to verify that this does indeed do what we want. Context. And then we'll move on to the Gatsby specific stuff. How about that? Or we were going to talk about
that'll be
reducers
fun.
for a minute. How are we doing on time? We're running a little short on time. Maybe we should.
So we'll maybe glance over it very quickly,
Okay, so we've
and
got
then
use
we'll get to the
context.
Gatsby stuff.
Let's add this real quick. And we're going to do comments equals use context, comments context. And we will do another dump right up at the top so we can see what's going on.
Sure.
Stringify comments null to good. And for people who don't know what I'm doing, this is causing it to format with 2 spaces so that it's not just one long string. But we can see it now works. We've got the context is being loaded. If I like add something at the front of this in page, we can see that it's being loaded in the layout. So we're able to call it now outside of the layout, which is, or in this page, which is, outside of where it would have been called before. So we're getting the expected outcome here. So let me just revert that real quick. Oops. Maybe a little too aggressive on my revert. Did I break everything?
Yeah, I
can
think you
just
want to get
close
rid
this
of
without-
that and app container because we
And app
added wrap root
container.
element.
Oh boy. Hope I didn't just break everything. Okay, that's better. And then we can go into the header. We can get rid of that as well because we don't need it anymore. Cool. So we'll drop this, and we'll drop this, and we'll drop this. And now we've got ourselves a regular old app. Cool. So did we want to look at use reducer real quick, or how do we want to?
So let's just quickly summarize everything we've looked at, right? We've looked at the use state hook
Yes.
from React. We've looked at how we can use that to have separate slices of state as opposed to putting everything in one object. We've looked at creating a custom hook like we did with use comments that does sort of encapsulates all of that behavior. We also looked at use context, which is a lot simpler than wrapping every sort of component with a consumer every time you want to use it. Every time you want to access context, right? Use reducer is interesting, but I think what I want to talk about before we run out of time is our new Gatsby hook.
Yeah, and for anybody who is who's looking, there are good docs on useReducer and everything. And feel free to tweet at me and at Sid after this, and we can we can help answer those questions. We want to make sure that we get through the
Absolutely.
use static query
Yep.
before we run out of time. So this is pretty
Absolutely.
exciting. We've got a new hook in Gatsby, and I will post a link to that in the comments. How do we use this? Or I guess maybe
All right.
what's the
So,
current status of static queries in Gatsby?
all right. Let's look at the SEO component. I think we have a default SEO component.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. So, just for anyone who doesn't know, static queries in Gatsby are basically queries that are static, hence the name. They don't take variables. But besides that limitation, you can effectively call, like you can send any GraphQL query you want from any component in your app and get back that data at build time. The way we currently do it is that we have a component called static query, which takes a render prop and a query, as you can see. So we're passing in details query, and the render function is called with that data, right? And it works great. I love it. But again, one thing that we've seen before and we're seeing again is how this sort of increases the depth unnecessarily every time you use it, right? And every component we use a static query, we're seeing one more level in depth.
Mm-hmm.
So the new hook lets us get rid of all of that. Let's try to use it. So we can use static query now from Gatsby.
Okay. And
Great.
what we should be able to do
And
then is use static query, and then we just grab that same query, right?
yeah,
Anything else
if
we need
maybe
to do to make
you want
that
to
work?
log it. No, that's it. That's literally it's just it takes the query, returns data.
All right, let's log this.
Mm-hmm.
And so we can take a look at this one. Get the console open, and we'll refresh. And this is it. Like, we get our site metadata, all the things that we want, and so then we can just go ahead and refactor this. So let's drop all of this, and we'll move this up. I think we can even skip that extra indentation here and drop that. And then that takes us all the way down to here, I believe.
Yeah.
And then we can drop all of these.
And you want to remove those. Yeah.
And I think that should do it. So there we go. Same result. And this is super cool. Like, we're getting just a much cleaner experience with this, where instead of having all that extra wrapper, we are able to just kind of grab something like this. But you were playing with something earlier today that I saw that looked really cool, which was like a custom hook built using use static query. Do you want to talk us through that?
Sure. So before we get to that, I just want to point out that what I really love about this is that it's a one line of code, right? Mm-hmm. We were able to throw away the component that wraps, our header, our SEO component here. We were able to throw away all the render prop stuff. Now we just have one line of code that calls a function, gets back data, and is all synchronous, and it comes back, and you can access it.
And this is also kind of cool too, because like I feel like this helps me as a developer, because I can see, like, I'm using a query, this is the data that I'm asking for, and then I know when I'm down here, like if I want to get the title, I can do data.site metadata.title, right? And so I can trace this right through data, site metadata, title. And this is so much easier in this context than in the static query render prop context, because things are just kind of right in line. Like you said, it's one line.
Absolutely, and it's co-located, right? So it's so much easier to read. In fact, you can even destructure everything on line 7. So instead of doing this, we can just destructure out site from it maybe, or go deeper, go as deep as you'd like. And then you just get access to title directly.
Yeah, we could do something like this. Now, this I think is this gets a little messy. So we
Yeah.
probably don't want to do that. But I think there might be another way to approach this that is equally convenient, but slightly less messy in the destructuring. And that would be a custom hook, right?
Absolutely. So let's talk about that now. Like we saw earlier with use comments, hooks are just functions, right? You can write your own hook. It's just a function. You want to probably start the name of the function with use because that's a convention. But they can do anything inside them. So let's make a new hook called use site metadata.
Okay, and we're going to import what? What do we need? Just
We're going to import GraphQL and use static query from Gatsby.
from Gatsby. And then we're going to have...
And we're gonna export a function now.
Okay, so this is going to be a function, and we will export that function. Okay. And inside of this, we're going to do what?
So we can call use static query inside this right now. We can say const data is equal to use static query of our query.
Let's just grab this and drop it in directly. And we don't need a name, do we? We can just leave that out for convenience.
Yeah, those are optional. We can leave those out. So now we can return data.site metadata.
Data.site metadata. Okay.
And back in SEO.js, instead of using static query, we can just use the new hook we just made, the custom hook, use site metadata.
Hooks, use site metadata. And so now we could do meta and site metadata. And now we know.
Absolutely.
Description or.
Now we could just destructure author, description, and title from the response if you like.
To avoid conflict with this prop, I'm not going to do that.
Oh, yeah.
But I normally I would agree with you, yes. But so now we can take like all of these instances of site metadata now can just be meta. And this is kind of amazing. So we'll do meta.author. We'll do, I mean, that's it, right? That is beautiful.
That's it. Yeah.
Oh, wait, did I?
And
crap.
Yeah. Oh, wait. Let's just call it metadata.
Yeah. Oh, no. Okay. So here, here.
That's it. I'm there as well.
Metadata. And then this is the one that was actually what gets sent in here. So we leave that, and if we look at the elements, we will see that the information that we expected to come in is coming in. So we've got our, the author is coming in, and if I go into the site metadata and I change this to your Twitter handle, then we should...
You need an H after SID. But that's okay.
Man, I'm the worst. I'm sorry. Then what we should see down here is that it's hot reloaded and that metadata is coming out the way that we expect. So, and this is amazing, man. And what I really love about this too is that if you look, like even in our in our standard kind of setup, we have already, like, we're pulling in metadata all over the place. So we've got another, where is it? In
I think it's in header or it's in layout maybe.
We had one yeah, it's in header.
I think it's in layout. I think layout passes it down to header. Maybe it's in layout.
Yes, here it is. So, here
There you
again,
go.
we've got all of that. So very quickly, we can come back in and we can
Yeah,
clean
let's
this
throw
up
all of that away. I love
intensely.
deleting code. Let's get rid of everything. Yeah.
Let's do it. So now we can do const
Metadata.
title
Oh, sure.
equals use site metadata.
Site metadata. Yeah.
And we need to import that. So we will import use site metadata from hooks and use site metadata. And that means that down here, instead of all of this,
Mm-hmm.
we can move to, where is it? This. And that's it. And so, this is gorgeous. Like the level of excitement that I feel for that type of simplification of code, this is huge because I love the static queries because it makes my life easier. But oh my goodness, do I hate having to write those render prop static query kind of deals. So being able to write this once and know that all of my site's metadata is available and I can just grab out what I need. And like you can imagine this going even further because in here, I could set something up where, maybe I have like design tokens or like theme. And then down in
Absolutely.
here, I
It
could
could be
have
anything.
extra items, right? And then we could do use
Absolutely.
theme and grab that out as well. So this is huge.
Absolutely. And I think one thing that we've been toying with, and another really exciting feature of Gatsby that I'm really excited about is themes. And themes can possibly even export their own hooks. So a lot of this querying can then be encapsulated into just function calls, right? You don't need to do the query. You don't need to write the query yourself. You can just import the function, call it, and you'll get all the data you need. So I think it's
Absolutely.
a really powerful pattern.
That is an extremely powerful pattern. And for anybody who wants to learn more about Gatsby themes, let's see. We did one of these. I can't spell, but this is close enough. We did a live stream last week, John Otander and I, where
Yeah.
we built a theme live. We did not have access to this hook, so you can use your imagination on how we could have done even more fun stuff by creating this with access to the hooks. Question from the chat is whether the code will be available at GitHub. It will. I'll include it in the notes that get posted on the YouTube video. We'll export this live stream to YouTube later today. And I will also include the links that we talked about, link to the source code, and all of that will get tweeted out as soon as it's ready. So, Sid, any parting words, anything you want to cover before we wrap up?
I just want to quickly point out one small gotcha
Sure.
with our hook is that right now, and it's on the docs as well at the bottom in known limitations. Yeah. So right now, we only support one instance of use static query per file, which isn't really a big deal because typically you have one component in a file, so I guess it's okay. This is because of how some of our querying works inside Gatsby. We are working to remove this limitation. So in the future, you'd be able to have multiple calls to use static query, one after the other, getting, maybe if you want to keep your queries smaller or get separate slices of your data, you can just call them multiple times, but that currently isn't supported. So that'll come soon.
So a
Yeah,
question with that is
mhm.
from the chat. It says, does that mean that I cannot use multiple components with their own use static query hooks? Now that
Oh
works
no.
because we're doing that right now. This site here, the SEO component is using the use site metadata hook, and the header is using it. But I have a follow-on question to that.
Hmm.
We moved use site metadata to its own,
Hmm.
where is it? To its own file, right?
Hmm.
Now, if
Hmm.
we were to create another hook that said, say, use themes, and this one would instead query like theme data, and I tried to use both of those hooks in the same component, would that work?
That would work, assuming that that other hook is in a separate file from this one. So if you had another
Cool.
file, that's so that that I mean that's it's not a very big limitation. But the thing is, right now we only support one GraphQL query per file. That's where the
Sure.
limitation comes from. But that'll go away soon. In the meantime, this is already live. It's in Gatsby 2.1, which got released last night. And I mean, we'd love to hear feedback, and hopefully this cleans up a lot of your code.
Yep. And the follow-up question here is, it's literally just one use static query hook per JavaScript source file. That is correct. It's very easy to work around. It's just something to be aware of. So you can't put two queries in the same file, but if you split them out to separate hooks, totally manageable. Cool. All right, Sid, this was awesome, man. I'm really excited about this. I think hooks are something that I've been very excited about since I heard about them. And knowing that we've now got a way to work around the kind of messy implementation of static query with this nice, clean, just give me some data hook, that's a really nice thing to do. So thank you so much for your work on this. For anybody who doesn't know, Sid is actually the person who wrote this hook. He implemented in the Gatsby core. If you have other questions, you can follow Sid. I'm going to spell his Twitter handle correct this time, I swear. H. Look at that.
Perfect.
Got it.
Well done.
Yeah. So go follow Sid. Subscribe here. Hit the follow button on Twitch to see future streams. Next week we're coming back, and I completely forget what we're talking about. Let me check that real quick. Next week we are going to do a live stream with Jesse from Graph CMS, and we're going to build out a Gatsby site with a GraphQL powered Graph CMS headless implementation. So please tune in for that, and we'll see you next time.
Awesome. Thanks, Jason.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Sid. I really appreciate it. All right, bye everybody.
Bye.